Me, Myself, and I, Unlimited, on being a wildly successful solopreneur. Session 1, Thinking Outside the Box. Learning to be the creative entrepreneur. We're going to begin Session 1 of this course with a riddle or a puzzle, if you will. Billy asks Annie how old she is. Annie replies that a couple days ago she was 32, but next year she'll be 35. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Now the answer to the puzzle is at the end of the session. Don't look. Try to puzzle this one through. It's a fun way to test your creative side. Here's a hint. Think less conventionally. Outside the box, if you will. Thinking creatively can be the difference between the business that folds within a year and the one that goes on to provide its creator a satisfactory experience and, yes, a good livelihood. Understand that thinking creatively or outside the box can help you become a wildly successful entrepreneur. Now, that's not an excuse to seize upon wild ideas. There's a significant difference. But nevertheless, brainstorming is an awesome exercise for the entrepreneur. If you've never sat down and tried to think of 100 ideas on how to solve a problem, 99 of which suck, you're shortchanging yourself. Because let's face it, Walmart's got a lot more money than you do. I mean a lot more money. You can't outmarket them, outspend them, or outdo them in many categories. But the one area where you have an advantage is nimbleness. A small entrepreneur can adapt and switch gears rapidly. The big Fortune 500 boys are like cruise ships steaming out of Miami Harbor. If you want to turn one of those suckers around, it'll take you a lot of work and a lot of time. The sunburned dude in the way too small Speedo swimsuit, avert your eyes, children, may only have a small dinghy, watch it, but he can turn his boat on a dime. And that's something the small entrepreneur must always keep in mind. If you signed up and took a class at your local college in business plan preparation, you may be rather proud of that 60-page document you created, but don't be afraid to toss that business plan in the shredder if moving in a different direction is better for your business, because then it's something you may do. Now that said, you certainly can't be changing your mission statement, product mix, and target market on an hourly basis. Consistency can't go completely out of the window. We're not talking speed dating your business. You have to establish a relationship before you can figure out whether this guy or girl or this service or product is the right one for you. Now, another thought on creativity is the power of imitation. As of this writing, Apple stock has split, so an average member of the public could buy, well, probably at least one share. But it wasn't too long ago that it took probably $600 to scarf up any interest in iAnything. How did Apple reach such heights of success? Well, I believe its initial forays into the technology market were personal computers. Now, did Apple create the personal computer? I don't think so, but they took the concept and made it different. And on a smaller scale, many successful entrepreneurs imitate what Apple did, which is, in a sense, copycatting competitors. Now, it's true the innovator may make millions and millions of dollars, but it's also true that many innovators make no dollars. The great idea can be more likely boom or bust. Now, it's true Thomas Edison came up with that cool light bulb thing, but he had lots of failures along the way. He must have had a really understanding spouse. Now, if you have what you believe is the seminal idea of the 21st century, by all means go for it. But it could be safer and perhaps sufficiently lucrative to look at what somebody else is doing and tweak that idea to make it a little better. When you do this, it's pretty easy then to look at your competitors' websites and figure out their target markets. You can look at how they position their products, sell it, and run their business. Can you figure out how to make the service more efficient, the product slightly better, or the experience more enhanced? Now, Ray Kroc did not invent the hamburger. I know this comes as a shock to your children. When he created McDonald's, he looked at the process of how burgers were cooked and figured out a more efficient way to deliver them. Since then, other fast food sandwich chains came along. Now, did they revolutionize the industry? In reality, I think they imitated the leader and are doing quite well, thank you. We see the pattern of imitation everywhere. Now, a lot of us think drug companies charge a lot for drugs because they need to make research costs up. Now, in some cases, though, the drug companies aren't trying to create a new drug, they're trying to create a copycat drug, one sufficiently different that they can patent and make money off of, but essentially does the same thing that a competitor does. So if you suffer from acid reflux or heartburn, or your cholesterol's too high, or you have heart atrial fibrillation, now there's a mouthful. Now there are several drugs on the market created by different companies, but they probably all essentially work the same way. We even see this in creative endeavors. I might be showing my age here, but when I tune into any top 40 radio station and listen to 4 or 5 songs by either a group of female vocalists or male, I think a lot of the voices sound similar. Are the big label companies trying to innovate, or are they looking at what's selling and trying to replicate? So how do you apply this to your own entrepreneurial pursuits? Take whatever it is you want to do. You want to start a law practice, hairstyling salon, perhaps write and sell an ebook on how to succeed as a small entrepreneur. What's the best way to do this? Well, as a lawyer, you might look at how successful solo practitioners have made their way. What can you do to improve upon what they already do? Don't tear it down and rebuild it. Take the 90% of it you really like and maybe figure out the 10% and make it your own. Hairstylists has a pretty stable industry to look at. I'm a guy and I probably don't notice a lot of differences between salons, but if you're a successful cutter and styler of looks and want to strike out on your own, maybe you don't want to recreate the wheel. Maybe you want to take what you've learned from your own experience at the various shops you've worked at, dig around a little bit, but don't simply duplicate. Look at the 1 or 2 tweaks that can make it distinctive, better, and your own. As for that poor slob trying to sell lots of ebooks, well, if you find the quintessential marketing tip for this business, please give me a call. The bottom line is the successful entrepreneur can't typically be just a good technician. Creativity must often play a role. It sets you apart from your competitors. Not so crazily apart that people shake their head and wonder what the hell you're up to, but enough apart that you have a distinctive approach. And hopefully that approach will be the one that sets you apart from others who are launching or have launched their concerns. Now the omnipresent 80-20 rule applies here. We have a whole course, by the way, on the 80-20 rule because it applies to many entrepreneurial situations. But here it applies quite sadly to entrepreneurial startups. 80% of them aren't going to make 5 years. What you need to do is use your creative juices, engage that right side of your brain, and find the tweak or tweaks that will kick you into that 20% camp. Spend the time. You can't simply duplicate what somebody else has done, but you may not want to start from scratch either. It's not twerking, but it is tweaking, so what's your angle? Because your tweak, your angle, is going to be derived from and then become part of your story and your brand. And your story and your brand, incidentally, is our next session. Well, one more thing before we get to the exercise. You want to know the solution to our riddle. Well, here we go, if you haven't figured it out yet. If you want a little more time, pause the video here and come back. But if you don't, here's the solution. Billy is speaking with Annie on January 1st. Annie's birthday is December 31st. Therefore, 2 days ago, she was 32. Yesterday, New Year's Eve, was her 33rd birthday, and at the end of the year, December 31st, she'll be 34, and therefore at the end of the next year, she'll be 35. Now this little riddle was adapted and modified a little bit from one that was in a book called Out of the Box by Rob Eastaway. A really cool book about how to think creatively, how to train your brain a little bit to think a little bit outside the box, as the title says. And one we recommend you take a look at. We also recommend you do our exercise, and we have it right below the video here. It's a SWOT analysis, and that doesn't mean you're trying to get rid of a pesky fly. It means you're going to look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that face your business. If you haven't already launched, you can look at what you project these to be. If you've already launched, you certainly have some real-life experience. And when you do this analysis, we encourage you to think a little bit creatively. Look at some outside-the-box solutions or different ways of looking at things. It's always good to engage both sides of your brains to find the answers to your problems and your issues. And then once you've completed that exercise, your next step is to go on to the next session where we're going to talk about the branding, the story, and some of the issues with content marketing.